Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, you've all been handed a small index card. Please, if you have any questions during the presentation, just write down your card and those will be collected at the end, and we will get those addressed as soon as we can. So first, for those of you who didn't catch my name at the last presentation, I am Jeremy Bridges, Program Monitor with the Governor's Office on Affairs. I oversee Region 2, and we are here today to discuss the GOEA Policy and Procedure Manual. Let's get started. First, you can always locate the most recent copy of the Procedure Manual at our website. That is found at goea.la.gov. Now, what is the purpose of the Policy and Procedure Manual? In short, it serves as a roadmap for each council. It lets you know the who, what, when, where, and how of everything we ask of each council. It lets you know how to do things, the exact correct way to go about it, and what is due to us and when. Now, we're also going to be touching on TAMs, which is short for Technical Assistance Memorandum. Now, the Governor's Office will be issuing TAMs every time there is a change to the procedure manual. And in the upcoming calendar year, 2024, there will be many new TAMs issued about policy changes. So we want you all to make sure to keep an eye out for those.
Jeremy, what is the latest updated date for that document?
Right now, for the procedure manual, we have the 23-24 copy available on our website. And it will be updated as needed. You can always find the most recent updated version at the website I just
And we can use that now?
Correct. Now, this is a quick overview of everything we're going to be talking about here today. We're going to touch on the functions and responsibilities of not only the individual councils, but also the AAAs. General requirements concerning bylaws, membership lists, annual meetings and reports, the difference between being a general member of the council as well as being a board of the directors, board rosters, state-funded senior centers, and important duties. First, we're going to look at comparing the functions and responsibilities of the AAA versus the council on aging, starting with the AAA. Each agency is designated by the GOEA to develop and administer a plan for a comprehensive and coordinated system of services to serve the elderly in their parish. They must identify and develop service programs, contract with service providers to serve those services, and also give technical assistance to their providers while also monitoring and assessing services provided. Do you have a question? Also, at times during the presentation, you're going to see listed there at the bottom a reference page and number where you can learn more information and specifically where to find it in the policy manual. For example, about the functions and responsibilities that's listed in subchapter B, section 1125 and 27. The AAA, each is responsible to establish and maintain a board of directors and an advisory council. All members, of course, must reside within the parish. Establish and maintain adequate staff. Plan social, health, nutrition, and in-home services to meet the current and future needs of their clients. Contract with service providers. Develop procedures for handling complaints. provide technical assistance to their service providers, maintain accountability for all funds that are awarded to them by contract, train and develop their staff for the needed implementation of the area plan, prepare all necessary reports and submit them in a timely manner to the GOEA, as well as coordinate with other programs that serve the elderly to assure a comprehensive service delivery system. Some of the administrative responsibilities for the AAA is that each AAA is authorized to plan and administer under contract the following programs we see listed here. Each should follow both federal and state law, as well as policies spelled out within the policy and procedures manual. Now, the 4 programs we see listed here are Title 3B, supportive services, 3C, nutrition, 3D, disease prevention and health promotion, and 3E, national family caregiver support. Now, in speaking about the Council on Aging, we're going to talk first about the responsibilities of the Office of Executive Director. Each director should perform their duties in accordance with the policies established by the board, and they should review and report to the board and others as needed on programs, operations, facilities, equipment, and emergency arrangements. The duties and functions of the Council on Aging. Each council is expected to, of course, promote the well-being of aging people, collect facts and statistics pertaining to conditions that affect the elderly within each parish, keep up to date regarding the latest developments in the aging field statewide as well as national, conduct public meetings to gather input whenever it is time to make recommendations for improvements to the council or using resources, provide for a mutual exchange of ideas and information on the parish and state level, act as service provider to their local AAA, coordinate and monitor services of local agencies that serve the aging, assist and cooperate with the GOEA, as well as make necessary recommendations for the planning and delivery of services to the elderly in their area. And all of this is in Chapter C, Section 1151. When comparing the administrative and personnel responsibilities of a council, we're going to start by looking at the administrative responsibilities. Each council is expected to keep records and reports to establish and maintain within the council concerning their total operation to satisfy both legal requirements, but also to use as a council management tool. Now, what records are we talking about? These are all records and policies set forth by the board, minute meetings, both board and subcommittees, personnel and fiscal records, correspondence, safety, fire, public and health inspections, accident reports, and statistical annual reports. Now, on the personnel side, each council is expected to handle both staffing and staff supervision, training, personnel policies, practices, and procedures, hiring practices, job descriptions, employee records, and evaluation. Now, on the fiscal side, what do we expect from each council? Each council should handle fiscal planning, accountability and reporting, their legal and administrative requirements, management procedures, risk protection, compensation, bonding, bank accounts, and all property that is owned or transferred via the council. Next, we're going to be touching on a little bit of the general requirements of each council. We're going to start with the bylaws. Council bylaws should be reviewed and updated as needed at least every 2 years. They should be sent to the GOA annually on July 31st. Revisions must be accompanied by an updated copy of the bylaws, as well as the evaluation of Board of Directors bylaws form within 30 days of necessary revisions. And it must be important to note that you have all procedures for amendments as needed listed as well. Now, when it is time to make a change to your bylaws, it is a 4-step process. Step 1 begins 14 days before you hold your initial meeting. You must notify not only your board, but also the general public as well, that you will be making a change to your bylaws and you are welcoming public input. Second step is you hold your initial meeting. It is at this meeting that you essentially present the need for a change to the bylaws to the board and public. at which point you then have a second meeting. It is at this meeting that the new bylaw language is presented and finalized using both board and public input. The fourth and final step is yet a third meeting in which the vote is officially taken, the new language is adopted into the bylaws, and the bylaws are then shared with the GOEA.
Question.
Yep.
Do you have to have a public notice on this? You have to either post it at your building in a conspicuous place, or do you have to go as far as put a notice in the newspaper?
No. Putting a notice in your local journal is not necessary, as long as it is posted either, like you said, in a place where everyone can see it on location at your council, or you can also go social media or on your official website. But it's not necessary to take out a paid advertisement.
Those 4 steps, are they, defined in this documentation, or is it just on your website?
It will be listed on the website. This entire presentation will be eventually listed on the website that I mentioned earlier, goea.la.gov. And it is being recorded also.
The final step, you just repeated one more time, the last step.
Okay. The fourth and last step is to hold a third meeting. It is at this meeting that the official vote is handled. The bylaws, the new language are essentially voted in, inserted into the bylaws, and then a copy of the updated bylaws should be shared with the GOEA within 30 days of that third and final meeting.
Do we need to call special meetings for this?
You can. It just happens that you're having a regular scheduled meeting, but you can also have special meetings for just this cause. Next, we have the membership list. The board secretary should maintain a list of all board members at all times. The list should be available for review at all regular and special meetings, and only those members who have been identified as current members will be permitted to vote at the meeting.
Question.
Yes.
Current members of those individuals who receive services from the council on aging.
No, that's board members, though.
Yeah,
It's not just general.
yeah, we are talking about board members and general. Annual meeting. Of course, each council will hold its annual meeting of its general membership for the purpose of nominating and electing new board members, receiving and presenting reports, and conducting any new and old business. Now, how do we prepare for an annual meeting? It's a process we're all very familiar with. It all starts 21 days prior to the date of your annual meeting. Each council should advertise either on their official website, social media, or in print the upcoming annual meeting. Now, it used to be mandatory that you had to take out an advertisement in your local paper concerning the upcoming annual meeting. However, that is no longer mandatory. If you wish, you can simply create the ad and place it either on your official website or your social media, such as Facebook. However, if you feel that taking an ad out in the paper is still the best way to reach all of your members, it is still an option that you can do. It is just not a mandatory option. It is optional. And of course, the council should have an annual membership drive, which will close 14 days prior to the date of the annual meeting. And each council is expected to prepare an annual report, which should include financial information, summary of all current activities, and the finding and recommendations of your subcommittees. Now, let's move ahead to 7 days prior to the date of your annual meeting. You should have post in conspicuous places on your council of aging location, upcoming notice about the meeting that includes date, time, and location. Now, you should not only put this notice at your council, but also all of your activity centers, which includes all your senior centers and meal sites. And then fast forwarding to 24 hours before the date of your meeting, we ask that you post again to your online sites a notice about the upcoming annual meeting. And of course, make sure to include date, time, and location. Now, what do we ask that you share with your program monitor before the annual meeting? Now, this all starts 2 weeks prior to the date of your annual meeting. we ask that you send to your monitor the meeting agenda, your director's report, and your current board roster, as well as a copy of the advertisement that you created to let the public know about the upcoming meeting. And we also ask that you share this document here. This is the annual membership meeting checklist. Now, the checklist not only serves as a tool to make sure that you've got everything done that you need to before the date of the meeting, but it can also serve as something to remind you about what is due and when. Because it is very important to note that if necessary documentation is not shared with your monitor within the timetables we just discussed, then there is a very real possibility that your annual meeting will not be recognized as valid, and it will have to be rescheduled and held a second time. So let's make sure we get all those important paperwork done in time. Now, we've all had lots of annual meetings where it was just me and the board members. We of course want to have lots of community input. We want to have lots of turnout at these annual meetings, so how can we help make that happen? First, of course, is time. Choose a convenient time for your annual meeting. Of course, meal times are always a popular time because people are already coming to the council for the congregate meal. You might as well stick around and learn a little bit more about how their council works and give their input to their board. Or perhaps have a raffle or a prize be given away at the end of your meeting. I was recently at a council meeting where they were raffling off bags of groceries. Each bag had a specific theme. There was one for fruits and vegetables, there was another one for pet care, and they had a very good turnout for that. Another thing is to try to offer transportation when you can. I'm sure that there are a lot of members who would love to be able to attend the meetings, but perhaps they don't have a vehicle or they cannot drive themselves. If you can't offer transportation, that is something we highly recommend. Or perhaps there's a local organization that you can partner with that might be able to help on that side. Perhaps there is a local church that has a van or a bus that would offer to shuttle people to the meeting. Or perhaps there's a local medical facility that might be willing to offer free flu shots to anyone who showed up to the meeting. But the most important thing is that you are letting your members know that you are hearing them and you are responding to their needs. Now, we're going to compare being a general member of the council to being a member of the board of directors, starting with general membership. Membership, as it was mentioned earlier, is open to all residents over the age of 18. Applications should always be available at each council location. Membership fees are never charged. Each council should hold an annual membership drive, and current membership lists should always be maintained at each council office. And if council staff is a member of the council, then they are not allowed to vote at the annual meeting. The person who works in the kitchen, the person who handles transportation, anybody who is salaried by the council cannot vote at the council meetings.
Question.
Yes.
General membership list. What kind of general membership list should you maintain? Should you just take those individuals who come to the meal site, who sign up and go to the senior center and have a list like that? Or do you have to go out and create a general membership list? Because with 80,000 individuals in one particular location, like the city of New Orleans, I don't see us maintaining a list of everybody over the age of 60 that buys service.
Well, that again is something that we would probably leave to the discretion of the council.
Howard, on your assessment, where it says, would you like to be a council on aging board member, you either accept it or you don't, we're gonna put this like that.
But that's a general, this is
Yeah.
a general member, and these people are in the 18.
Oh, well, yeah,
Yeah.
but I still use that.
The list of.
Well, at one time, I mean, 30 years ago, we used to get a little card, say you go.
Yeah.
There are definitely for some councils, maintaining lists of everyone who uses their services definitely easier than other councils. But we definitely ask that you try your best. We know that all these councils are mostly run on a volunteer basis. People are there trying to serve their community, and we know that you are doing the best at all times. So that's all we ever ask.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Are you saying that as an employee, I can't vote at the general membership?
Yeah. Well, anybody who is anybody who works at the council is on staff cannot vote at the council. They cannot, when it's time to, vote for, somebody like floor nominations or to vote for the passage of something, yeah, they are only non-staff general members can vote.
But volunteers can.
Well, if they are not salaried staff,
They're not getting
yeah.
paid.
Yeah, you can either get a paycheck or you can get a ballot, but not both. Now this is a sample of a membership card that if you want your council to print out and share with your members, you can.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Do y'all provide those or we make them ourselves?
We asked that the council would have to produce them themselves. But as you can see, it's a very simple, just the name of the person and all the contact information concerning the council which they're representing.
So, can anybody be a member? Or do you have to be over the age of 18? Can anybody be a member over the age of 18?
Yes.
Do you have to keep a list of members? Or they,
Oh, you mean the members only under the age of 60 do you have to keep on the list? No, all members have to, if they are a member of the council, then they should be on the general membership list. I don't know if you have a lot of 19-year-olds signing up to your councils, but yeah, that fact always takes me a little aback as well. You don't play favorites. Alright. Next, we're going to be talking about the board of directors membership. Now, as it was mentioned earlier, each board of directors should have no less than 11 members, but no more than 21. And if at any time those numbers are not respected, then there is a very real possibility that your board of directors will not be considered a legally constituted board. And of course, your bylaws should spell out exactly the number of members you should have at any time. Board members are.
So if our bylaws state that we have 13, but we lose one, we're still in compliance with state.
Yes, you have a timetable to
But
find
we
and
have to
replace
get
it.
one within 60 days.
Correct. Board members are elected by the general membership at the annual meeting, and voting is always done in secret. Ballots are prepared from a list of nominees, and those ballots are always counted in full view of the general membership. Members of the board are elected to 3-year terms. Terms begin and end in the month in which they are elected. Temporary replacement should be made within 60 days, and each officer shall be elected by the members of the board at the first meeting following the adjournment of the annual.
If you have your list of board nominees, and you don't have anybody who's running against it,
Yep.
you need to have a secret ballot.
We do suggest that they have the ballot. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but these are the rules that we ask people to follow. I have seen lots of meetings where it was me, the board of directors, and everyone who was up for a second term. There was nobody running against them, but, rules are rules, that's all we can say. It may sound like a waste of a perfectly good index card, but it's something we ask for.
Okay, we had one person one time said that the ballots after they're counted should be destroyed. Do we destroy them or not?
No.
Okay.
No one's ever asked that question before about what to do with the ballots.
I had a board member, actually, the board president at the time, said it was going to be back to the office and destroy it. And I said, well, I think we can, but I just never heard her officially.
Well, that is,
Supposed to be destroyed.
You're all supposed to be destroyed.
I'm not,
Maybe get a ruling from that.
You have to make a synopsis of it.
Okay.
Again, that, I don't think that there's any kind of official rule concerning about what to do with the ballots. That is probably something we.
If you have never had any issue whatsoever with someone wanting to recount and redo your efforts, then you will be safe destroying those.
I can see you doing a synopsis of what votes for each one, I can see that as a kind of record.
Just to have a record.
So general requirements concerning the board of directors. We want parish-wide representation on each board. Business and financial management is key, because some of these councils are nothing less than major corporations. We ask that all board members reside within the parish throughout their tenure, and of course, be a member of the council. Now, board members who have served 2 consecutive full terms are ineligible for 1 year to continue in that office. Somebody who has served as treasurer for 2 terms cannot serve as treasurer for a 3rd term, but they can serve as an officer in a different position. They can go directly to president or vice chair, just not the same position for 3 consecutive terms. Former council, yes.
The individual, I have an individual who lives in the parish and has a home in Baton Rouge. They receive mail in Baton Rouge, but they spend a lot of time in the parish. So how does?
We would look at their physical address, where they live.
Okay, but in her case, when I've got something like that, it's split. So I use where they get their mail. And the reason why I use where they get their mail is because that's what the registrars of voters use.
Well, something we're gonna be touching on later is do they have a physical mailing address, or do they have a PO box?
They have a physical mail, we don't have PO box, so we have physical mailing address. So I figure if I use that one, they'll at least get, they'll get their mail, and chances are you don't leave your mail for days at a time there, so. But it's a question.
Yeah. Again, it can be tricky sometimes. There are been questions about, they live here, they get the mail there, they live right on the border of the parish, and they're literally across the street, and on the other side of the street is the parish line. Again, in these situations, we leave that up to the prerogative of the council.
Okay.
You know that you guys will always do what is in the best interest of your members. So we're not gonna be doing spot checks, asking people to, prove that they live somewhere. But, we know that you always have their best interests at heart. Something that was also mentioned earlier in the last presentation, immediate family members or members residing in the same household cannot serve on the board at the same time. And former council board members cannot serve as agency staff for 2 years after separation. This was a question earlier. Somebody who handled transportation for a council. Let's say that they want to quit and run for board president. They have to wait for 2 years after leaving staff to be able to serve on the board. And that goes both ways. The treasurer must sit out 2 years before they can become kitchen staff. Now, board of directors is made up of the president or chair, vice president, vice chair, and secretary and treasurer. Now, if it is spelled out in your bylaws, the offices of secretary and treasurer can be combined. Also, your bylaws should state if you refer to leaders of your directors as either president and vice president or chair and vice chair. Consistency is very important. Now, each board officer will serve for a term of 1 year. They may not serve more than 2 consecutive terms in the same office. And all vacancies of the board officer should be made within 30 days. We're going to do a quick quiz here about some of the things we just discussed. How many days before the date of your annual meeting must the council publicize their upcoming annual meeting? 21. Okay, question number 2. How many board members are required to be considered a legally constituted board? Excellent. Last question, true or false? The council or AAA will find temporary replacements for any vacancies on the board within 60 days. That means
30 days.
True.
for for non-officer board members, the answer is 60 days. For officers who resign,
30 days.
30 days. Now we're gonna do a quick review of board rosters. Now, board rosters are due to your monitor within 30 days of the date of your annual meeting. They can be scanned and emailed with your secretary's signature. However, if your secretary is not available at the time you want to submit your roster, any officer can sign off on the roster as an alternative. And it's also important to remember, temporary term information stays on a person's board roster throughout the time that they serve as a board member. It doesn't vanish after the beginning of their second term.
Their temporary term, if they take somebody's place,
Yeah.
because that's counted in to their.
Yeah, we always want that information on there. PO boxes are no longer to be allowed on board rosters. We must have physical mailing address. And an updated board roster should be created and signed and submitted to your monitor anytime the board has a resignation. And of course, we ask that you follow all board procedures.
I will say that we've been calling several years, if we have somebody that might have a St. Martinville address, New Iberia phone number, they live in New Iberia, we've had to send in their voting, where they vote. Because, I mean, they have a St. Martinville address, you know, but they actually live in Iberia.
But that's like in Cameron, we have a Capital zip codes, but we're all Cameron, so we have that problem.
Well, we just had them go get the voting registration, you know.
Oh,
didn't have
we
to-
know where they're at, but when we send them in.
Right, they don't know. They
We
see
will
St.
monitor.
Martinville, and that means a.
Go that deep into it, because we don't have the manpower until we get a question. So the best thing is for, they let us bring it, have it on site, because our first call will be to the director, has somebody call about this board member, and you can send it right over to us. If they're in one of those zip code areas, because every parish has it, we get really close to the parish line, and it's only determined by it's best determined, it's most quickly determined by their voter registration.
But since the hurricanes, we are very limited to our zip codes, yeah.
Y'all been wiped out.
Yeah. So we share zip codes with everybody.
See here, we have a sample of the board roster. Now, anytime you need a blank roster or a previous approved board roster sent to you, you can get in touch with your program line. Now, we're gonna touch a little bit on standing committees. Each board is expected to establish the following subcommittees at their first meeting following their annual. We have the executive, board development, personnel, finance, and ad hoc. And the list of all of your committees and the members are also due to your monitor 30 days after the date of your annual meeting. We're going to do a quick review of each committee, starting with the executive. Now, this will be composed of officers and others that the board designates, and they essentially serve as the leader of the committee because they have the authority to make any necessary decisions that will be delegated to the board. Next, we have board development. Board development is elected by the board, but they also elect their own leader. This committee nominates temporary replacements to fill any vacancies on the board that may pop up. They prepare and present a list of nominees for the board to be voted on. And also, at the annual meeting, they develop a list of nominees for any officers that the board will need to vote on.
Question. If you have an issue that comes up that's an emergency that's dealt with by the executive board, don't they have to give concurrence to the board at the next meeting, agreeing with the position that they took?
Yeah, it is something that they do have to present to the board. I mean, they don't get to make the decision themselves. It all depends upon the vote of the board. They can definitely present, create, but it will be a group decision when it finally comes to the.
If it's supposed to be an emergency where there's no time to consult, then they have to make a decision on something. And of course, to me, they still have to take it before the board as a whole and present it that they did this.
If we are talking about an emergency situation,
Yeah, that's what I'm
then
talking about.
in those situations, we can give you some leeway. I mean, that's why we have the emergency preparedness plans, that's why we have these, plans already put into place for just such an occasion. But to answer your question, if it is a time of emergency, then they don't have to worry about calling the meeting, and having a vote. They can just go ahead and get that emergency addressed right away and just take the vote at the next available year's meeting. Moving on, we have personnel. Personnel will be appointed by the board president. This committee is charged with interviewing and recommending candidates for the executive director's position. They also recommend salaries and any necessary adjustments for the position of executive director.
So the personnel committee only handles the director.
Yep, that is correct.
Wow, we've been doing it wrong.
Employee policies that across the board affect your council on aging are established by your board. But COA employees are the responsibility of the director.
Right, but they were looking at all the policies, that just says, just the executive director.
Just the executive director.
Yeah, interview and recommend candidates for just the executive director.
Okay.
Finance committee will consist of the treasurer and other members appointed by the board president, but this committee will be led by the treasurer. This committee will develop fundraising activities and prepare and submit any necessary budget reports following the fiscal year for approval by the board. We also submit financial reports and amendments to the budget for any current fiscal year. And as I was also mentioned, ad hoc committees. These are essentially special project boards that are created as needed, usually to oversee large things happening with maybe improvements to a mill site or perhaps a large purchase like a new delivery van. Ad hoc committees are created as needed to oversee these projects.
So I foresee that one can't be turned in 30 days after the meeting.
Yeah, these are committed, as they present themselves.
Right, okay.
Can you have advisory committees that have members, people on it that are not board members? Just the general, just general membership?
Yeah, that would be a different, because we do have advisory boards, which have different people. I guess it's
And they're not,
board.
right, and they're not board members.
There's just the board.
And here we have a sample of a standing committee list, which is due to your monitor at the same time as your board roster after the date of your annual meeting. Now, we're gonna touch on a little bit about state funded senior centers. The senior center serves as a focal point where older adults can come together with services and activities that reflect their current experiences and skills, respond to their diverse needs, enhance their dignity, support their independence, and encourage involvement not only within the center, but in the community at large. To participate, they simply have to be eligible as they are over the 60 years of age, and if a person is over the age of 60 and resides within their parish, then their spouse can automatically become a member as well, regardless of the spouse's age. Now, a few minimum requirements for senior centers is that they must provide nutrition services, transportation, education and enrichment, information and assistance, wellness 3D, and health promotion and disease prevention. Also, we ask that each senior center serve an average of 20 participants per day, operate for 5 days a week for no less than 4 hours each day. Now, if a center is not able to provide one or more of the services you see listed here, they would in fact be considered a satellite site. And if a center is created only to serve meals, then they are considered a meal site.
Wait, go back to that one. Okay, and so, wellness B is, 3B is not in our hands anymore. But all the other things up there, we are needing. I'm sorry, disease prevention, that would be 3D, I'm sorry, that would be 3D. We're not meeting on the requirements, so that would not be considered a senior center?
No, it would be considered a senior center satellite site.
So you wouldn't even have not one senior center if you don't.
And you have to have at least one.
Yeah.
You have to have at least one.
But if you're in a multi-parish planning and service area, the minimum requirement obligations are more than likely met in the service area.
In the service area somewhere would be.
Okay, so that would be.
Yeah.
So you'd be.
Cause we have had a matter of balance there, but that doesn't mean we're gonna get it every year.
Yes.
The standards for senior centers include having written goals and objectives, participating in community planning, clear personnel policies and procedures, a broad range of activities, a calendar of events, and ensure that all employees are trained in first aid, CPR, and bloodborne pathogen. Now, the bloodborne pathogen kits should be available at each senior center. Whether we ask that each center have posted or available, each senior center should have posted in plain view their compliance with current state and federal labor laws in connection with ADA, their code of conduct, and evacuation procedures. We also ask that each center has available and ready for review their rules and regulations, goals and objectives, mission statements, grievance procedures and forms, emergency preparedness, their menu, calendar of events, and donation amounts signage. Go back to the aforementioned of a senior satellite site. To give the official definition, a senior center satellite site is an activity site which meets less than minimum standards required for a senior center and is under the direction of a GOEA contractor or subcontractor. All senior centers may be required to use the following two forms we're going to talk about: the evaluation form and waiver request. First, we're going to look at the evaluation form. Now, if a senior center receives GOEA funds, which they use for anything from meals to salary, then an evaluation form is required. It should be filled out annually by your site manager, and even though it can be filled out at any time during the year, it is due to GOEA by June 30th. And once it is filled out, it can also be scanned and sent via email. The waiver request form. This form is for senior centers only that do not meet minimum requirements. These requirements include the dates that we mentioned earlier, about 5 days, 20 participants, and 4 hours. This request form must be submitted annually by June 30th, and satellite sites and mill sites are not required to submit a waiver request. And it's important that both pages of the request form be filled out before scanned and sent to your monitor. Now, we're gonna have another quick quiz here. I'm going to describe a hypothetical situation, and I want you to let me know what type of site this would be considered. First, we have a South Louisiana site that does not provide transportation or information and assistance. What type of site would this be considered? That is correct. Next, we have a York, Louisiana site that provides only meals. What type of site? Easy. A West Louisiana site can provide the required services. However, they are located in a small country town that can only have the resources to stay open for 3 hours a day. What type of form would be necessary, and what type of site would this be considered? This senior center site would need a waiver request. Now, here we have a quick list of important dates concerning documentation and when it is due to your monitor. We have the evaluation and waiver request forms due annually by June 30th. Succession plan certification by July 1st. ADA compliance, nepotism, 3D, and insurance certification all due on July 15th. And bylaw certification due annually by July 31st.
Are those forms or blanks on the website?
Thanks, they're loading them for us. Lauren is here, she's loading these documents as we get them.
Our forms, I think, are rolled off.
Yeah.
That old.
Now, Now,
different people.
concerning the documentation and due dates, it is important to remember, when your annual meeting is approaching, we want everyone to make sure that they get the necessary reports and information to us within the timetables we just talked about. Because the upcoming calendar year, 2024, once the council has submitted all the necessary paperwork to their monitor before the dates that they are due, they will receive a annual meeting certification form. This is essentially paperwork to let you know that everything that is due, everything we need, has been submitted on time, and you can go ahead and move with having your annual meeting. Alright. Is there any questions?
Now y'all grab me all these questions. Y'all ain't no questions for Jeremy. I got some questions for Jeremy. Did I miss it? Because I was late.
Oh, we ask questions at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where are we?
He was given one.
Yes.
For executive directors, there are models for the abilities model for executive.
Benefits for executive director position. I don't know if there is a model offhand.
Human resource related?
Yeah.
Like job position, human resource related?
No.
That would be up to the board to establish.
Yeah, that would be a description we would expect each council to tackle individually.
Well, they can if they, like, post something to them, and if they say, send us, bring us something, we can. But it's gotta be approved by the agency, the board just reviews it to make sure it meets the plan, and if they approve it.
Okay, I think we have another question right here.
If our annual meeting is the first Monday of July, we have to have all of these sent in, like even though they're not due to the beginning, we have to have them sent in at least a month prior.
It is 21 days, there are things that are due 21 days before, 14 days before, things that you have to do 7 days, 24 hours. It is documentation that is due, also things we ask you to do, like taking out tags.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about these forms that we have to send in. Some of the due dates are not until like July 15th, but we're in the process of changing our annual meeting to the first Monday of July.
We won't approve that. Which council is that?
You want to approve?
You wanna change it in writing?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to approve the first?
Because for hurricanes, the first Monday, you get a real antsy person in your parents, they gonna put you hell and high water to describe why you just been holding it. You know, hurricanes going through and windstorm. You can hold it the first Monday as your regular routine,
Yeah.
but it's just not the best thing to do. But you can, you definitely do it.
Well,
You just already want.
what we have is we already have our annual meeting set for July, but we are having it on the third.
Is that in your bylaws?
That's in the bylaws
Yeah,
now.
I take it all the way out, because as we get to the bylaws to nail down, because we have several things that we want to do, current staff, to make sure you guys are not tied into parameters you cannot meet. And that's based on a worst case scenario. I mean, I'm gonna really reach on this one, I reach a lot when I'm giving worst case scenarios. If they were giving away prizes for anybody who met their bylaws, I want every one of y'all to win the prize. But currently, if the hurricane keeps blowing through on that Wednesday before your Thursday, you're never gonna get it. And you can hold it any day you want to, as long as you're meeting the 21, 14, and 7 days. Those need to be the only parameters of how you win. Because the paper's gone now. You don't have to find your parish journal and make sure it's advertised 21 days and count the days and make sure it works for you. We just need to post that one sign 21 days before the date you chose, and then keep it moving, and make sure you're meeting those 21, 14, 7-day parameters.
So we don't have to have the actual date in our bylaws.
No actual date is needed in the bylaws, just the month that you hope to host it. Because if ever, this would never happen besides the Constitution, July 4th gets changed to some other day, somebody probably be more lucrative, I mean, looking at 30, 32 here. We don't know what's gonna happen in the future. We don't want that. So when we get it, I'm gonna review it, we would not approve something that would tie you into something that you may or may not be able to stick to. And you could probably stick to the third Thursday every year, but it's not necessary. You can do that without putting it in. It's too specific. But for those documents, any document's due date can be kept the same, irregardless of when you're hosting your meeting, if it's in June or July or August, cause it's really close to those due dates. What you wanna remember, and we will do this for you, I'm working on this to make it, I tried to make these dates a little more cohesive, right now they match accounting and finance, they look very familiar. July 15th, those final financial reports are due, we tried to match that date, so when you're sending that one thing in, you can send them all in. At the annual meeting, anything that needs a signature from your board, get your signatures, keep with those dates. If you can have it done by the time the annual meeting has been conducted or is being held, and then send it all in together, that's fine.
Okay, so we don't have to have it in our bylaws.